The flashing lights, the sirens, the chaos. Nobody could have predicted what was about to unfold when T.I.'s son, King Harris, found himself at the center of a scandal that has left fans across the globe in absolute shock. Whispers are flying, rumors are swirling. And the Harris family, known for their empire of music, fame, and reality TV drama, is facing a nightmare that seems ripped straight from a scripted show. But this isn't just entertainment. This is real. Reports claim that King Harris is now fighting for his life in the ICU after a shocking incident behind bars. Incident so unexpected, so heartbreaking that it's forcing everyone to ask, how did it come to this? Those who know King describe him as bold, rebellious, and never afraid to stir the pot. But nobody thought his fiery attitude would lead to something this catastrophic. T.I. and Tiny, his parents, are said to be devastated, torn between anger and anguish, desperate for answers. The Harris family's tight bond is being tested like never before, and fans can't stop speculating about the truth behind those jailhouse walls. Was this just a tragic accident, or is there something much darker at play? Stay tuned, because what we're about to uncover will leave you speechless. The night that everything changed for the Harris family began with what seemed like another one of King Harris's reckless choices. People who follow him online already know his fiery personality, his hunger for attention, and the way he often clashed with his famous father, T. But no one, not even his closest friends, expected that his antics would spiral into a situation so dangerous that it would leave him clinging to life in an intensive care unit. It all began with an arrest that many thought would be minor, a few hours in a cell at most. Something that the family could sweep under the rug as they'd done before. But this time was different. The energy in that jailhouse was volatile and King's outspoken. Confrontational spirit made him a target almost immediately when King walked into that cell block. Witnesses say he held his head high, refusing to let anyone see fear in his eyes. "I'm not my daddy's shadow," he reportedly told another inmate. "I'm King Harris, and I don't bow down to nobody." Those words, bold and dripping with pride, set off sparks in an environment already thick with tension. Some inmates mocked him, others grew silent, but a few saw his attitude as a challenge they weren't willing to ignore. Whispers say that one confrontation escalated faster than anyone could have predicted, and what began as heated words turned into something darker, more violent. Outside the jail, T and Tiny were already on edge. Word of King's arrest had spread across social media like wildfire, with fans and critics weighing in. "He's spiraling," one fan posted. "Someone needs to step in before it's too late," another voice added. "This is what happens when fame goes unchecked. He's crying out for help." The public was divided between sympathy and judgment, but behind closed doors, the Harris family was unraveling. Tiny was reportedly in tears, pacing their home, calling every connection she could think of to get her son released. T, on the other hand, was furious at King, at the system, at himself. "I raised him better than this," T was overheard saying, his voice breaking with a mixture of anger and guilt. "How did we get here?" Back inside the jail, things took a terrifying turn. Inmates later described the scene as chaotic, a clash of egos that exploded into physical violence. One source claimed that King was cornered, that multiple people went after him at once, and that guards were too slow to intervene. Another source insists that King provoked the fight, his pride refusing to let him back down even when outnumbered. Whichever version is true, the result was the same. King was left battered, unconscious, and in desperate need of medical attention. When guards finally stepped in, the damage had already been done. King was rushed to the hospital. And that's where the shocking words were first spoken: intensive care unit. As news broke, fans were horrified. "King is in the ICU." One shocked comment read, "This is heartbreaking. I can't believe this is happening." Hashtags began trending, with messages of support flooding social media timelines. But along with the sympathy came harsh criticism. "This is what happens when kids think they're untouchable," someone wrote. "Fame won't protect you from reality." The divide was clear. Some prayed for King's recovery, while others used the moment to point out the dangers of living recklessly under the spotlight. The Harris family rushed to the hospital, emotions boiling over with every step. Tiny reportedly broke down as soon as she saw her son. Tubes and wires connected to him, machines beeping steadily in the background. "This isn't my baby," she cried, her voice echoing down the hallway. T, meanwhile, struggled to hold it together. His tough exterior cracked as he stood by his son's bedside, his hand resting on King's. "You gotta fight," he whispered. "You hear me? You gotta fight. It's for a man known for his strength, his composure, his control." It was a rare glimpse of vulnerability that left those around him shaken. But as the family gathered in that sterile hospital room, old wounds began to resurface. Arguments sparked between T and Tiny, with blame being thrown back and forth. "You were too hard on him," Tiny accused, tears streaking her face. "You pushed him away with all your lectures and rules." T fired back, his voice trembling with frustration. "And you babied him, Tiny. You never let him face consequences. You let him think he could do whatever he wanted." The tension was unbearable, their grief twisting into anger as they tried to process the nightmare unfolding before them. Family members tried to calm them down, reminding them that King needed unity, not division, but the damage was done. Emotions ran high, and the cracks in the family bond were suddenly impossible to ignore. Meanwhile, outside the hospital, the media frenzy grew louder. Cameras swarmed, reporters shouted questions, and fans camped out with signs of support. Pray for King banners hung on fences, while others whispered conspiracies about what really happened in that jail. Some claimed the incident was more than just a fight, that there was a setup. That King was targeted because of who his father is. This wasn't random, a so-called insider told one outlet. This was planned. Someone wanted to send a message to T, and they used his son to do it. Whether truth or speculation, the theory added fuel to an already raging fire. Inside King's hospital room, the atmosphere was heavy. Doctors warned that the next 24 hours were critical, leaving the family in a state of unbearable uncertainty. Tiny clutched her son's hand, whispering prayers, while T paced the room like a caged animal, unable to sit still. "If he pulls through this, things have to change," T muttered under his breath. Though it wasn't clear if he was speaking to himself, to his wife, or to his son. The family's other children arrived quietly, their faces pale with fear. One of King's siblings broke down, sobbing uncontrollably as they begged their brother to wake up. "Please don't leave us," they cried. "We need you." As the hours dragged on, tensions only grew sharper. The hospital became a stage for whispered arguments, nervous pacing, and desperate attempts to hold on to hope. T and Tiny's phone calls to lawyers and officials grew louder, their frustration boiling over as they demanded answers. How did this happen in jail? T snapped during one heated call. How does someone end up in the ICU on your watch? Somebody's gonna pay for this. Tiny, torn between rage and despair, pleaded for calm, but her own voice cracked under the weight of fear. "Just get him out of this," she begged. "That's all I want. Just get my baby out." Dawn approached, with King still unconscious and the family divided between anger, grief, and suspicion. A chilling realization set in. This incident was far bigger than any of them had imagined. The Harris family, already accustomed to the spotlight, was now at the center of a storm they couldn't control. And while fans prayed, speculated, and criticized, one haunting question remained. Was this truly an accident? Or was there something much darker lurking in the shadows of that jailhouse? And just as the sun began to rise, with the family barely holding it together, a nurse rushed into the room, her expression urgent. "We've got movement," she announced, sending shockwaves through the room. Tiny gasped, T froze, and everyone leaned in closer. But what happened next would change everything once again. The room fell into stunned silence as the nurse's words hung in the air. "We've got movement." Tiny's eyes widened with hope, tears already streaming down her face. "Baby, can you hear me?" she whispered, clutching King's hand like her life depended on it. T leaned in closer, his jaw tight, his voice low but trembling. Come on, son, show us something. The family crowded around the hospital bed, waiting for any sign, any flicker, any proof that King was still fighting. For a moment, it seemed like a miracle. King's fingers twitched ever so slightly. His eyelids fluttered as if struggling to lift the weight of the world. And his lips parted in a faint, broken breath. Tiny gasped, nearly collapsing from the surge of emotion. "He's trying," she sobbed. "He's still in there." T's tough exterior cracked, his eyes wet with tears he couldn't hide. "That's my boy," he whispered, gripping King's hand tighter. But just as quickly as hope surged, it shattered. The monitors beeped erratically, alarms sounding through the sterile room as nurses and doctors rushed in, ordering the family to step back. "He's unstable," one doctor shouted. "We need to get his vitals under control." Tiny screamed, refusing to let go until a nurse gently pulled her back. T punched the wall in frustration, his body shaking as he watched his son's fragile body tremble under the weight of machines and chaos. Fans outside would later describe this moment as the cliffhanger of a lifetime. A scene that felt ripped straight from a scripted drama. Except this was painfully real. Outside the hospital, the crowd of fans and media doubled. The story had exploded across every platform. King Harris in the ICU after a violent jail incident. Hashtags like #PrayForKing and #JusticeForKing trended worldwide. Celebrities weighed in, posting prayers and words of support, while others couldn't resist stirring the pot with cryptic comments. One rival rapper posted, "Sometimes you play tough and life plays tougher," a line that sent fans into a frenzy of speculation and outrage. Inside, the Harris family wasn't just battling fear, they were battling each other. Tiny blamed the environment of fame for corrupting their son's path. He grew up around cameras, lights, money. How could he ever learn real consequences? She sobbed to a relative in the hallway. T, pacing like a lion in a cage, disagreed. "Nah, he knew better. I raised him better than this. This ain't about the cameras, it's about choices. He thought he was untouchable." The arguments grew louder, raw wounds being torn open in front of family, friends, and hospital staff. "You were too strict," Tiny shouted. "You drove him away." T's response cut deep. "And you were too soft. You let him think the world revolved around him." These words didn't just echo in the hallway, they split the family. Some sided with T, believing King's recklessness was a result of bad choices, while others sided with Tiny, arguing that the pressure of fame and a lack of unconditional support had pushed him down this path. Emotions ran high, and the hospital became more than just a place of healing. It became a battleground of blame and regret, while the family was in turmoil. Rumors continued to swirl. One shocking claim began circulating online, that King wasn't just a victim of random violence in jail, but that he was targeted because of T's past feuds in the industry. This wasn't just a fight. One anonymous source claimed to a gossip outlet. This was revenge. They couldn't get to T, so they went after his son. Others speculated that King himself had gotten mixed up with the wrong crowd, bringing danger onto himself. No one could confirm anything, but the narrative was growing darker by the hour. Back in the ICU, Kang's condition remained fragile. Doctors worked tirelessly, but they warned the family that recovery wouldn't be simple. "There's trauma here," one doctor explained softly. "His body is fighting, but the damage is significant. We're monitoring for complications." Tiny collapsed into a chair, whispering prayers under her breath, while T stared at the floor, his fists clenched so tight his knuckles turned white. "If he makes it out of this," T said quietly, "everything's gonna change. I don't care about the music, the fame, none of it. I just want my boy back." As night fell again, the atmosphere in the hospital grew heavier. King's siblings sat in silence, their young faces etched with fear and sadness. One of his brothers broke the silence, his voice trembling. "He always acted tough, but he's not ready for this. He's just a kid." Tiny hugged her children tightly, promising them that everything would be okay, though her own eyes betrayed doubt. Then came another twist. A guard from the jail who had witnessed the incident reached out to the family with shocking information. According to this guard, thought that left King in the ICU wasn't just inmate-to-inmate violence. It may have been sparked by corrupt staff who turned a blind eye. He was provoked, the guard allegedly said. They wanted to see him fall, and when it happened, they didn't stop it fast enough. The revelation hit T like a freight train. So they set my boy up. He growled, slamming his fist against the table. They wanted to break him. Tiny, clutching her chest, whispered, "Oh God, what did they do to my baby?" The family's anger reached new heights. T vowed to get justice, his voice fierce with determination. "Somebody's gonna pay for this," he told his inner circle. "I'm not letting this slide. They tried to break my son, but they messed with the wrong family." Tiny begged him not to spiral into vengeance, reminding him that King's life was still hanging in the balance. But T's rage was uncontrollable, fueled by the image of his son broken in a hospital bed. The public, meanwhile, devoured every update. Videos of the family arriving at the hospital went viral, with fans analyzing every detail: tears, T's clenched fists, the siblings' solemn faces. "This is tearing them apart," one fan commented. "I've never seen T look so broken," another wrote. "If this doesn't bring the family together, nothing will." As the second night passed, with machines humming steadily and King still unresponsive, the family's exhaustion showed. Tiny refused to leave his side, sleeping in a chair with her hand gripping his. T, restless and furious, spent the night making phone calls, demanding answers from lawyers, officials, anyone who would listen. "We're not letting this go quiet," he said firmly. "The world's gonna know what really happened in that jail." And just when the tension seemed unbearable, King stirred again. His lips parted, his voice raspy, barely audible. But the words were clear enough to freeze everyone in the room. "It wasn't an accident," he whispered, his eyes fluttering open for the briefest moment. Tiny gasped, clutching his hand tighter. "Baby, what do you mean?" T leaned forward, his heart pounding. "Who did this to you?" Before King could say more, his eyes rolled back, and he slipped into unconsciousness again, leaving behind a cryptic message that sent shockwaves through his family. It wasn't an accident. Those words would haunt them, fueling suspicion, rage, and a desperate search for the truth. The Harris family now faced not only the fight for King's survival, but the terrifying possibility that a deeper, darker plot was unfolding right beneath their noses. And as the hours ticked by, one thing became painfully clear. This was no longer just a family tragedy. It was a full-blown war. The hospital room felt colder after King's haunting words, like the air itself carried a warning. It wasn't an accident. Tiny sat frozen, her hand still wrapped around his, her tears falling silently as her mind replayed the moment over and over. T, on the other hand, was pacing furiously, his anger boiling to a point of no return. "He knows something," T muttered under his breath. "Somebody did this to him on purpose, and I'm gonna find out who." His voice cracked, a mixture of rage and desperation. A father torn between fury and heartbreak. Tiny tried to pull him back, her voice shaking. "What if he's confused, T? He's been through so much. Maybe he doesn't even know what he's saying." T snapped his head around, his eyes burning with determination. "Nah, Tiny, he meant it. You heard him just like I did. Our boy ain't lying. Somebody wanted him hurt." As word of King's brief moment of consciousness leaked out, the outside world erupted once again. Fans dissected every detail, spinning theories that ranged from rival rap beefs to corrupt jailhouse deals. "If he said it wasn't an accident, then believe him," one fan tweeted. "There's more going on here than they're telling us," another fan added. "This sounds like a setup. T has enemies. This could be revenge." The pressure mounted not only from fans but from the media, who camped outside the hospital day and night waiting for any official update. Every twitch of a curtain, every relative walking down the hallway became front-page gossip. Tiny hated it, feeling stripped of privacy during the most painful moment of her life. "They're turning our pain into a circus," she whispered to a family friend. "How are we supposed to heal when the whole world is watching?" But healing was the last thing on T's mind. Behind the scenes, he was making calls, summoning people from his past that Tiny wished would stay buried. "Find out who touched my son," he ordered one associate, his voice dangerously calm. "I don't care what it takes. I want names." It was the side of T that Tiny feared, the side that reminded her of his old street days. A man capable of moving mountains when pushed into a corner. "Don't do this, T," she begged. "Don't go back there. This won't bring him back to us." But T's response was chilling. "This ain't about bringing him back, Tiny. It's about making sure nobody ever tries this again." Inside the hospital, King's siblings struggled to cope. One of his sisters sat in the waiting room, scrolling endlessly through social media, tears rolling down her cheeks as she read strangers debating her brother's fate. "Why are they judging him when he's fighting for his life?" she sobbed. "They don't even know him." Another sibling grew angry, slamming their phone onto the floor. "They want to paint him like some thug, like he deserved this. Nobody deserves this. He's our brother." The family, once so used to cameras and controlled storylines, was now drowning in a narrative they couldn't control. Hours passed, then days, with King's condition wavering. Doctors spoke carefully, never making promises, reminding the family of the severity of his injuries. "His body is fighting," one doctor explained, "but recovery will be long and uncertain. We have to be prepared for setbacks." Tiny clung to hope. Tiny clung to hope, whispering prayers over her son's bed every night. While T grew more restless, his anger simmering just below the surface. Then came another blow. A video began circulating online, allegedly recorded inside the jail, showing part of the altercation that put King in the hospital. Though blurry and incomplete, the footage was damning. It showed King standing defiantly in the middle of a crowd, his voice loud, his posture unyielding, before chaos erupted. Fists flew, bodies clashed, and guards stood by for far too long before intervening. The video ended abruptly, leaving fans with more questions than answers. "This proves it," one fan declared. "He was targeted. The guards didn't even try to stop it." Others disagreed, arguing that King's own actions escalated the situation. "Look at his body language," a critic said. "He was provoking them. He wanted this fight." The divide grew sharper. With public opinion swinging wildly between sympathy and condemnation, T exploded when he saw the footage. They stood there and watched. He shouted, slamming his phone onto the table. "They let my boy get jumped and did nothing. Nothing." Tiny tried to calm him, her own face pale from the horror of watching her son suffer on camera. "We can't lose ourselves in this," she pleaded. "We have to stay strong for him." But T was already on the phone again, calling lawyers, demanding lawsuits, threatening to expose the entire jail system. "They think they can play with my family. Nah, they about to learn real quick who they're dealing with." Meanwhile, King's brief words, "It wasn't an accident," echoed louder with every passing day. Tiny replayed them in her mind every time she looked at him. "Who hurt you, baby?" she whispered when no one else was around. "What did they do to you?" Though King remained unconscious, she swore she saw tears slide from the corner of his eyes, as if his body remembered even when his mind couldn't yet speak. The family's circle of friends began to fracture under the pressure too. Some close to T urged him to take action, to fight back and reclaim control of the situation. Others warned that vengeance would only make things worse. "This ain't the time to start wars," one longtime friend told him. "This is the time to pray." T shook his head, his eyes filled with rage. "You don't come after my son and think you walk away clean. Nah, I can't let that slide." As if the situation wasn't already spiraling, a shocking leak hit the internet. Medical reports were shared without the family's consent, revealing just how severe King's injuries were. Fans learned about fractures, internal bleeding, and complications that made recovery uncertain. Tiny sobbed when she saw strangers dissecting her son's condition online. How could they do this to us? She cried. He's not a headline, he's my baby. T, however, saw the leak as confirmation that the system was corrupt from top to bottom. They're trying to humiliate us to make us look weak, he snarled. But they got another thing coming. With emotions raw and tensions high, the family faced yet another gut-wrenching twist. King's condition suddenly worsened one night, his breathing erratic, alarms blaring through the ICU. Doctors rushed in, ordering family members to step aside as they fought to stabilize him. Tiny collapsed to the floor, screaming, "Don't take him from me, please God, not my baby." T stood frozen, his fists clenched, silent tears streaming down his face as he watched helplessly after what felt like an eternity. The doctors managed to stabilize King once more. But the warning was clear. His body was fragile, his life hanging by a thread. "Every hour counts," the doctor told the family gravely. "We need to prepare for all possibilities." And as the family tried to catch their breath, T made a vow, his voice steady but filled with fire. "Whoever did this," he whispered, "is going to wish they never touched my son." Tiny, still on the floor, shook her head desperately. "Don't let this destroy us, T. Please, don't let this turn you into someone you promised you'd never be again." But T wasn't listening. In his mind, war had already begun, and just when it seemed the family couldn't handle another shock, a detective walked into the room with new information that would tear open even deeper wounds and revealed truths the Harris family wasn't ready to face. The detective's arrival shifted the air in the room instantly. Tiny wiped her tears quickly, sitting upright while T squared his shoulders, his jaw tightening like stone. "What now?" he asked coldly, his voice a low growl. The detective hesitated, glancing at King's fragile body on the bed before speaking. "We've reviewed more footage from the jail, spoken to witnesses, and the situation is more complicated than it seemed." Tani clutched her chest. "Complicated how? Just tell us." The detective sighed, his tone heavy. "We believe your son was targeted. Yes, but not by strangers. It looks like someone he trusted inside that environment turned against him." Gasps rippled through the room. One of King's siblings whispered, "Someone he trusted." Tiny's eyes filled again. "You mean a friend?" The detective nodded. There was another inmate he'd been talking to regularly, almost like a confidant. From what we gathered, that person may have betrayed him, lured him into a situation that spiraled out of control. T's fists clenched, veins bulging in his temples. "A setup," he spat. "They used somebody close to him. I knew it. I knew this wasn't random." Tommy broke down, sobbing into her hands. "He's just a boy. He doesn't deserve this. Why would anyone do this to him?" The detective's answer was chilling. Revenge, intimidation, jealousy, it's hard to say. But what's clear is that this wasn't just about King. This was a message. Those words hung like a curse. A message. The family sat in stunned silence, each member realizing that King's suffering was part of something larger. Something aimed directly at the heart of the Harris legacy. Outside the hospital, fans and media were already in a frenzy. Whispers of betrayal spread like wildfire. He was set up by someone he knew. Headlines blared. Social media exploded with speculation, some pointing fingers at former friends, others accusing rivals from the industry. "This is bigger than King," one fan posted. "This is about power, about breaking T." Inside, T exploded. "They wanted to break me," he roared, pacing the room. "They couldn't touch me, so they went for my son. But they didn't realize. They just lit a fire they can't put out." Tiny grabbed his arm, desperate to keep him grounded. "T, stop. This anger, this ragit's not what King needs right now. He needs you here, with him, not out there starting wars." But T's voice only grew louder. "Nah, Tiny. You don't get it. They already started the war. I'm just finishing it." The siblings watched in silence, their young faces pale with fear. One finally spoke, their voice trembling. "If you go after them, what happens to us? What happens to Mom? To King when he wakes up? Are you just gonna leave us behind to fight your battles? T froze at the words, his rage colliding with the piercing truth of his child's voice. His chest rose and fell heavily, but he didn't respond. Meanwhile, King stirred once again. This time, his eyes opened wider, holding on longer. His voice was weak, shaky, but it carried weight. "Dad!" Everyone rushed to his side. Tiny gripped his hand, her tears spilling freely. "I'm here, baby. I'm right here." T leaned in, his face softening for the first time in days. "I'm here, son. You safe now?" King's lips trembled. They told me I was nothing. They said I was just your shadow." His voice cracked, his breathing uneven. "I tried to stand up, but they were too many." Tiny broke down, kissing his forehead. "You're not nothing, baby. You're everything to us." Key clenched his jaw, holding back tears. "You're my son, King. You don't gotta prove nothing to nobody. You hear me? Nothing." But then King's words grew darker. They said they'd come for me again. Or for you. His eyes darted weakly between his parents. Don't let them win." And just like that, his strength faded, his eyes slipping shut once more. Leaving his family trembling with fear and rage, Tiny collapsed into T's arms, sobbing uncontrollably. "He's terrified, T. Our baby's terrified. This has to stop." T held her tightly, his face a storm of emotions. "I swear on everything, nobody will ever hurt him again." As the days dragged on, King's condition stabilized slowly. He was still weak, still drifting in and out, but the doctors finally admitted there was hope. "He's fighting," one doctor said with a faint smile. "It'll be a long road, but he has a chance." The family rejoiced in cautious relief, clinging to every tiny victory, but outside their bubble, the drama raged on. More leaks, more speculation, more chaos. Fans debated endlessly, some demanding justice, others blaming King for his own downfall. Celebrities weighed in against some sending love, others stirring the pot with veiled insults and cryptic posts. "Some kids get everything and still throw it away," one rival rapper wrote, fueling more fire. Through it all, the Harris family grew closer. Despite the cracks and arguments, Tiny spent every waking hour by King's side, whispering prayers. T, though still consumed by thoughts of revenge, softened when he saw his son fighting. "You stronger than I ever knew," he whispered one night, holding King's hand. "And when you get out of here, things gonna be different. I promise you that." But the question lingered. Who betrayed King? Who set him up? Detectives continued their investigation, but answers were scarce. Every lead seemed to vanish. Every witness contradicted another. It was like chasing shadows. Yet the family couldn't shake the feeling that the truth was close, just out of reach. Then, in a shocking twist, a letter arrived at the hospital, slipped under the door of King's room. Tiny found it first, her hands trembling as she picked it up. The envelope had no name, no return address, just the word warning scrawled across it. T tore it open, his eyes scanning the message inside. The note was chilling in its simplicity. "This isn't over. Back off, or the next time, it won't just be King." Tiny screamed, her body shaking as she clutched her son protectively. T's face turned to stone, his fury now an unshakable vow. "They think they can scare us," he said, his voice like steel. They just made the biggest mistake of their lives. The family was left divided once again between fear and fury, between healing and revenge. Tiny begged T to focus on their son's recovery, to let the authorities handle it. But T's mind was already set. "They came for my family," he whispered. "Now I'm coming for them." And as King lay in his hospital bed, fragile but slowly recovering, the Harris family found themselves standing at the edge of an uncertain future. Would this tragedy pull them together and heal old wounds? Or would it ignite a war that could destroy everything they'd built? One thing was certain, the story was far from over. And fans everywhere, their hearts pounding with every new twist, couldn't look away from the storm that was consuming the Harris family. And there you have it. A whirlwind of heartbreak, betrayal, and unanswered questions surrounding King Harris and the Harris family. From the shocking jail incident to the chilling words he managed to whisper from his hospital bed. It's clear this story is far from over. Fans are still stunned, emotions are running higher than ever, and the family is caught in a battle between healing and vengeance. With a mysterious letter threatening that this isn't over, one has to wonder, what comes next for King and his family? Will T's anger lead to a war he can't control, or will the family find strength in unity and protect King as he recovers? Now, we want to hear from you. Do you think King was the victim of a planned setup? Or was this all a tragic escalation of choices gone wrong? Do you believe T should take matters into his own hands? Or should he focus solely on his son's healing and let the authorities do their job? Your thoughts could be the spark for the next big discussion, so don't hold back. If you were gripped by the twists and turns of this story, make sure you hit that like button to show your support. And if you want to stay updated on every dramatic detail as it unfolds, subscribe to the channel right now and turn on that notification bell so you never miss a moment. And most importantly, drop a comment below, tell us where you stand, what you believe, and how you think this heartbreaking story will end. Your voice matters, and we're here for the conversation. Until next time, stay tuned, stay engaged, and keep watching.